So, hey everybody, I'm called JJ. I'm a professor in the classroom teaching entrepreneurship at Cal State Fullerton and have been doing so for about 18 years. My background is in technology. I was in Silicon Valley in the 80s and had a lot of fun in those days, the early days working with Apple and Intel and Oracle and all of those companies. I did a tour on Wall Street, helping companies go public. And there I learned about greed with a capital G. And this is kind of my third career with the Incubator, teaching at the university. And then I'm also the founder of Titan Angels and the managing director. So today I'm going to talk about startup advisors, advisory boards, and then just a little about boards of directors. And I am open to questions along the way and clarification. So it begs the question, what is a startup advisor? Well, actually, a startup advisor can take many forms. But usually they're a person who's been there and done that. They bring some industry or subject matter expertise, and often they're called upon to make connections, act as a sounding board to the founder of a startup or founders. They actually could be a future C-level executive. It's not uncommon for an advisor or advisory board member to join the management team. Generally, I would say that's not the motivation of most advisors, but it's possible. And I think a key skill is listening to the startup, and by the way, keeping whatever is heard confidential. Now, an advisory board is made up of advisors. How clever is that? And they're providing non-binding strategic advice. So what does that mean? Well, it's a more informal relationship with the company, unlike a board of directors. The advisory board members have no legal authority. They don't have fiduciary responsibilities as a board of directors might. And so an advisory board is going to provide the support to the founder or founders, but without the formality of the board of directors. So these people, they can help with strategy. They bring credibility and contact. So it's just, I think the Yoda example is important. So I would say when you're looking for an advisor, you want to find someone that you can talk to. I mean, I think that's way on top. Someone that has been there, done that, as I said a minute ago, sure. And they're going to be an ongoing source of reason. So what do you expect of a advisor or advisory board? Well, at the very least, it's probably quarterly meetings, and frequently in an early stage startup, it's monthly or more often. You want the advisor to pick up the phone. So when there's a problem or a decision to be made, and there are many in an early stage startup, you want that person available. They could help in hiring decisions, and that could be locating candidates or even assisting in the interview process. But I think most importantly, they've got a third-party point of view. And the objective of the advisor is to be as unbiased as possible. Now, there's a delicate side to this where the advisor needs to provide value. And is it tough love or is it as a cheerleader? So an early stage startup has ups and downs, and witnessing what goes on in our incubator, which is now 5.5 years old, my own experience in startups and my experience as a startup advisor, I can tell you it's a roller coaster. And so there are times when you need to encourage the startup along. Other times you gotta get real and tell them how things really are. So question, intellectual honesty versus politeness. This is where the disposition of the founders is at play. Honestly, I think you want advisors who are going to tell you the truth and confront you, to do it in such a fashion that the founder hears it, and that may include being blunt. That's a critical and yet difficult thing to do. Let me pause for a second and say, well, there are mentors and then there are advisors. And I was actually, as recently as this weekend, looking at the difference in definitions. But mentors are not advisors. So mentors are there to guide and to coach. And there is this affable side to mentoring, providing emotional support. Now, advisors, candidly, are more direct. They take action, and they're there to deliver strategic insight and to do things with the startup. So I think there's just a different orientation to what the advisor does. I got to tell you, being an advisor is hard. And here are a few reasons why. So, you're not a member of the management team, and you will meet periodically, maybe even frequently with the company, but you're on the outside, and it is hard to stay up to date. And so every time you engage with the startup as the startup advisor, you're getting an update of what has happened in the last week, the last month, whatever it might be. Now, here's something that may not be understood at all times, but founders don't always tell the truth or they don't disclose all the facts. And so the self-belief system of most startup founders is so strong that they don't want to spread any bad news, even to their advisor. So you can see that makes it really hard for the advisor to give to help out. It's interesting to note that not all founders are coachable. So if you think about it, the characteristic of a startup founder is they're driven, they're passionate, they have a strong belief in themselves and their solution. And some of them are at the point of being kind of what I would call pig-headed. They just won't listen. And in that scenario, it's very hard to be an advisor. And coupled with that, some founders can be very sensitive to feedback and criticism. So one has to tread lightly, but also be truthful in that relationship. And for the advisor, if there is any compensation, it's not guaranteed. And to speak with you in all candor, I am an advisor to a number of startups. I recently worked with a startup for nearly 2 years as a formal advisor, and the company went BK for a series of reasons. And I worked so hard with this young company to help them make the right decisions. The outcome wasn't positive, as it is on some occasions. And so there was no compensation. So my reward was the process itself. When it comes to your advisory board, how many should you have? Well, most startups will start with one advisor, and then they'll build over time. So starting with one, and I would say on an early stage startup, if there's an optimal number, it could be three, but one is a good place to start. And frequently, the advisors are brought in early. And why is that? Well, there are a lot of you bet your company decisions to be made, not only the legal entity, it would be partners, it would be staffing, and in addition to help with the pursuit of funding. And so that's why the advisor, that first advisor, is usually picked up very early in the process. Advisors should have a term limit, like our president has a term limit, our senators, and it's up to the startup. I would say it's anywhere from 1 to 4 years typically, where the term could be renewable. Frequently, I see 2-year terms for advisors. And, what happens? So you've been an advisor for a startup for 2 years, 3 years. You may have done the good you're going to do, depending on the advisor and the role that you played. And there is, if you look at formal boards of directors, you'll see that those people turn over periodically to bring in new blood, in effect, people with new skills, different relationships. It begs the question, well, why would someone want to be an advisory board member or an advisor? My experience is that most advisors want to help. So there's a nurturing teaching side of advisement. They want to stay fresh in the industry. They're looking to meet new people, and in a advising relationship, it is a source of personal satisfaction you can get. And advisors can, by the way, can come in all shapes and sizes, all ages, all backgrounds. And you will see people in the later stages of their career becoming advisors, and that makes good sense. They're able to leverage their experience, and it also adds to their profile or their LinkedIn account. So it begs the question, should you pay these people? Okay, so there are advisors who will work for free. Now, one of the issues with someone who works for free is, will they pick up the phone when you need them? Are they going to be available? Are they going to be committed to you? And I favor modest compensation to the advisors. Usually it's in the form of equity, and early stage startups, I would say normally are like 1 to 2%, which sounds like a lot of the equity, but it gets seriously diluted over time with the addition of new capital. I would say usually it's a 2-year vesting period, and you can vest monthly. So over a 2-year period, every month it vests, and at the end of 2 years, the advisor in this case would be vested and then holds a formal equity position. In the event that there is the sale of the company, if there's a capital event, merger and acquisition, you would normally have a clause that says that a change of control will trigger vesting. I would say normally startup advisors don't have expenses, and if they do, they're very modest. But if the advisor's got to jump on an airplane, you would pay for that. Now, there is an opportunity to include a 3-month cliff. And so what happens with a cliff is maybe that's someone you don't know well, they haven't consulted for you, you have not been engaged with them, and it's like a trial period. And so the 24-month, using that example, uh, period for vesting would include 3 months, which are effectively at a trial. So if the startup advisor isn't really delivering, you're not compatible, then you can terminate at 90 days into it. And I emphasize this is someone you probably don't know well. And it doesn't mean they're not skilled, but this gives the founders an out. There are many tools out there to document the advisor relationship. There's one by the Founders Institute with this particular URL, and it addresses the basics. Now, any attorney with his salt will want to rewrite this, and you'll find that the attorneys can enter the picture early sometimes, and they may want to take control of these type of documents, and that's understandable. But in most cases, early stage startups are operating without the guidance of the attorney, without a lot of money, and most of the decisions they're going to make that need to be documented are available on the web, LegalZoom, etc. Now, here's a question. Should your friends or your family members be on your board? And my advice is no, they never should be. And now here's the reason, is that they may be mentors, they may be valuable listeners, but this is the best way to lose a friend or injure a family relationship. And that's why friends and family as sources of funding, I would say, are typically a poor choice. They're just too emotionally attached here. And you have friends and family members, you want to keep those people. Now here's one. Occasionally you can bring someone on who is, as an advisor, who is toxic. So let's talk about that. So what would toxic mean? They could be, and I think you know who I'm talking about here. They're a contrarian. No matter what you suggest, they counter. And at some point in time, that's fatiguing, right? They could also be an advisor, but they don't return phone calls. They don't show up to meetings. They're uninvolved. They're just not providing value. So that's one reason the cliff is helpful. And there's something else that happens. That early stage startup, let's say in months 1 through 6, has a set of needs. In years 2 through 4, the needs might be entirely different. And so having the term limits is then critical. So it is possible to take on a board member who just does not fit. And if you determine it, you'll need to knock them out. So how do we find these folks? Well, within your network, there are likely people who you respect, who have skills, experience that you don't. And so it is frequent that your startup advisors are only 1 or 2 degrees away from you, and may be very complimented, may be a perfect fit. You can look at other startups and see who's actively advising out there. There are actually advisor matching services where you would connect with someone you don't know. And then the local meetups and mastermind groups. So clearly there are a lot of people, but you need to think about what you're good at, what you're not so good at as a founder, what type of help do you need, and what's the profile of that startup advisor. Here's some advice. Don't stay local necessarily. In this Zoom world, where we're not meeting face-to-face anyway, you could open up your search and harvest candidates for advisors on LinkedIn, Twitter, AngelList, etc. And so the advice would be, don't fish only in your own little pond. I can see why knowing someone makes that decision comfortable, but it is an issue of skills and building up an inventory into your board, which is most important. Now let's contrast an advisory board to a board of directors. So they're similar, but different. So as an advisor, they're going to bring content, access to their network. It's frequent that the advisory board is asked to assist in the search for capital. Yes, they're mentoring, they're listening and coaching. They may be compensated, and their membership may be transitory depending on the agreement you put in place. A board of directors has a fiduciary responsibility to represent their shareholders. And that includes confrontation with the CEO and the management team. So they have a legal responsibility to make sure that the CEO is making good, credible decisions. They have voting rights. They're compensated. They have term limits. So I was a board of director for a public company, and the firm valued my independence. My term limit was 4 years. Every time I attended a board of director meeting, I was paid $1,500. And then ultimately, after 4 years, I had 100,000 shares. Sounds terrific. Company was on the pink sheet, so it was a smaller firm. And my behavior with that firm was altogether different than my role as an advisor with others.
Hey, JJ, quick question from Raphael. Raphael, would you like to ask it, or do you just want me to go ahead?
Yeah, so I just wanted some clarity around the board of director structure. Is that only if there is a formal corporation like a Delaware Corp, or does that apply also if we decided to formalize our structure as an LLC?
Very good question. So S Corps and C Corps, and by the way, there are many varieties of corporations, are mandated to have boards of directors. And I have to put a caveat that these laws, although overseen by the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, they're state by state. And so a typical startup that is an LLC is not required, certainly in California, to have a board of directors. But you can have an advisory board, and most do. So I'll talk about nonprofits in just a second. Therefore, an LLC, a partnership, all the varieties of partnerships, typically do not have boards of directors. Corporations are mandated to have them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, very good. So boards of directors, I would say at most public companies, they're typically 4-year terms. The board number does vary, but it's typically larger. So when you get into an up and running public company, you'll discover that they'll have an odd number of board members, and the bigger the entity, the more the board. So 3, 5, 7, 15. So if you do a search, for instance, on Disney, you'll see they have an immense board. They're all heavily compensated with cash and with stock. Clearly, we're not talking Disney here. By the way, when you're an officer of the company, and that could be the CEO, the management team, and the boards, you can get sued. And so think of it. So you're a board of director. You have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the shareholders' value is taken care of. And the CEO can make a dumb decision with a employee, with a vendor, with a customer. Any of those parties will sue. And who do they sue? They will sue the entity, and they will sue the executives, and they will sue the boards of directors. Now, in the event that there's a lawsuit, as an example, it could be that the proceedings could be held in court in New Jersey or in New York. And so there would have to be travel. And then there are legal fees with the attorneys. And so most boards of directors will not consider joining the board without D&O insurance to help in any situations like this. And a subnote, there could be civil and criminal actions brought against the directors and officers. So it's a big deal to become a board of director. Now, I'll say that with the advisors, they don't have that fiduciary responsibility. They do not function like a board of directors. They could be vested in the company and be a member, but they're less likely to be involved in a lawsuit. What about
real quick about D&O? Does the startup pay for it, or does the director themselves pay for it?
Startup pays for it. So the company, in this case, the corporation, buys the insurance, and that helps defray the expenses that a board member could incur. Now, here's something that's interesting. So you're a startup. You're typically an LLC. You might be a C Corp, and you're starting off with an advisory board and helping you make those critical early decisions of how to get going, right? You then decide to go forward with a board of directors. Now, C Corps are mandated to have a board of directors. And it's interesting that the advisors actually can migrate to become board members. Or you can have both. And so think about it. You have a quarterly meeting with your boards of directors. And oftentimes those board meetings are contentious because you're being second guessed by your board. You can concurrently have an advisory board. And the advisory board, I would say, is more familiar, a little less formal, and less adversarial. The truth should be spoken. But in the case, it's quite possible to run those in parallel. And that's kind of an interesting strategy. Nonprofits, you'll discover that nonprofits are required to have a board of directors. Having been a board of director for many nonprofits, the primary responsibility is trying to get the nonprofit to run like a business. And I don't mean to generalize, but most nonprofits typically are first about a cause or a mission, and then secondarily about the business. Usually the director of the nonprofit is deeply passionate, not always skilled in running the business. So most board of directors for nonprofits are continually riding the ship, trying to keep the nonprofit afloat. Oftentimes they have fundraising responsibility, and these positions typically are unpaid, particularly in the smaller nonprofits, and it's oftentimes a huge responsibility. So I'm going to close early. I didn't want this to drag on. I wanted to answer your questions. So I believe strongly that advisors help. Usually the earlier, the better. Because that's where the been there, done that experience can really pay off. I think that you want a truthful, to the point of being blunt dialogue with your advisors to keep you from making mistakes. And so cheerleading is helpful. I think blunt, truthful conversation is better. And that concludes my presentation. Here's my contact information. Travis, I'll kick it back to you, but very happy to share this presentation with no concern about copyright.
All right, so yeah, actually I'm going to add the presentation into the chat right now. It should be there so you guys can download it. We did record JJ's presentation, so that will be posted online maybe as early as later today. But right now, if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, please unmute yourself and ask away. And maybe I will look through and see if I can find any. Eva, I think you had a question about consulting business. Would you like to ask that now or later on? It might be better later on. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
Thank
please
you.
ask it now and we can tell you.
I just wanted to start something because they say while you're looking to get full-time consulting work, you know, you have to do a lot of pitching, but you should have the business already set up. So I don't know how easy or hard it is to get it started and set up.
Are you referring to the legal entity as an LLC or?
Yes, I wanted to create an LLC. I just don't know the mechanism. I understand the basic understanding of what to do, but how would I set it up? I know it's a DBA and all that, but I want to get more specific into what I need to do, because I hear it's very easy to do. I could just go one day, hand in all the paperwork, and I'm in. And other times I've heard it's very difficult, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so there's mixed answers on that one, but it is possible to go to a source like LegalZoom, okay, and procure and set up a California LLC to get your tax ID, to register the LLC with the state, and to get the basics in place. You set up a bank account, and so fundamentally you're kind of in business. Now, the business attorneys will say, well, yes, while that's true, the reason you'd want to retain an attorney to help you with the decision about which legal entity to choose and where to register the company is for long-term tax and other decisions. Now, for instance, if you set up the LLC on LegalZoom, it's a few $100s. If you go to the attorney, I would say more typically they're $1,500, and they're going to suggest that the value is in their counsel about the choice for the making the decisions. Now, overwhelmingly, startups in California will choose to start as an LLC, and the reason for that is that it's far easier to do. The compliance requirements of maintaining the LLC, tax preparation, are just easier than it would be with an S Corp or with a C Corp. It's also common for a startup that initially is an LLC for the first 12 to 24 months to ultimately convert to, let's say, a C Corp. So now they're bringing in sophisticated investors who want a board position, who want the tougher legal umbrella of the C Corp, etc. So making that change later on is very doable. Everything costs money, but it's not prohibitive. You know, to start up a new company, you could go and knock on the door of the Small Business Development Corporation, SBDC, and they can provide some free advice on how to get started.
All right, very good. Jessica, I think you have a question.
I do. Thank you, guys. Thank you both. So this is kind of a paranoid question, but just because I have seen startups and I have seen even successful businesses that don't necessarily use accountants to keep track of their financials and don't necessarily do certain compliance things. So my question is probably for both of you guys, when it comes to the D&O insurance, if you are a director, and you have the D&O insurance, or you believe that you have the D&O insurance, that initially it was filed, is there any possibility that the company could not make all of its payments on the D&O insurance, or something could happen where you could find yourself in a situation where you are somehow legally culpable for the bad decisions of the company because you believed you had the D&O insurance, you had the paperwork, you had everything, but they hadn't kept up on the payments or whatever. So I'm wondering how you can ensure when you don't, directly verify all of the bookkeeping from a board of directors position, how you can make sure, that's the essence of the question, I guess.
So you're spot on. So it's possible for a board of directors who's on a 4-year term to believe that the D&O insurance is in place and paid for. And it is possible for the company to be negligent and not pay and not tell the director. So as a board of directors, in my case, I would look for proof of insurance. And now, if you're a board of directors and you get sued as a part of the group that's being sued, it doesn't mean you made a mistake, but nonetheless, you're a party to it. And so for a board of directors, you just gotta have the insurance.
So
Is it wrong to ask the insurance company directly, or to do something where you have it set up that if there's any changes to that insurance, they alert you? I mean, I don't know if that's even possible.
Yeah, so in my case, I've just made it an annual request for proof of insurance.
Awesome.
So it's a statement, right? Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, you said something that's troubling, and that is, but real, that the startups do a poor job of accounting and finance. Maybe they're not using QuickBooks, they're maybe using Excel, or they've got a shoebox with receipts in it.
Yeah, I worked with several startups who did not, and who just did not see the value of using an accountant, and did not fundamentally understand the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. And you don't need to use an accountant every single week, but you definitely have to have a relationship with an accountant, and you need to make sure that your bookkeeping system is set up the correct way. So I've encountered that where people are using the wrong system, set up the wrong way. And it's not just one single thing with the accounting that they're not in compliance with. Usually they're not in compliance with, if their people are not in compliance financially, they're usually not in compliance with HR either. You know, it's usually, you know, a system-wide thing. But you said yourself that a lot of startup founders they're strong-willed, and they don't always have a well-rounded business foundation before they get going, but they're not going to either ask for help, or they may not accept help.
Yeah, that is reality. And so an advisor, depending on their role, can help the startup understand the consequences of not commingling funds, dumb as that sounds, between personal and business. You know, the IRS would just be all over it. And the importance of the outsource CPA relationship early in the process. So these are all very valid concerns, Jessica, that you're bringing up. I have witnessed them, and I can tell you that the startup profile of most early startups does not include strength with accounting, finance, financial controls, etc. So they need outside help, basically right away.
All right, very good. I think Wayne's up next.
How you doing,
Yes.
Wayne?
Hi, my name is Susan Iwamoto.
Sorry, Susan.
Hello, Wayne's iPad, also known as Susan.
Yes, thank you. I'm borrowing my husband's cell phone. You know, we're in a qualified opportunity zone in Costa Mesa, and I'm a former economic development director in another state. But our biggest challenge with the opportunity zone has been that our city doesn't understand that it's a public-private partnership tax incentive tool. I've talked to our chamber director. I've talked to the Orange County Business Council. I've talked to some of the SBDCs that did get grants that are right now backlogged with COVID priorities. So we want to, you know, there's a clock ticking on the opportunity zones. So my question for you is, I've participated in all the expos. I know who the experts are, but they're the ones that are basically charging $50,000 to $100,000 to get your fund started, or to get your structure for your QZOB started, which to me is a huge barrier. The model that we want to do is actually a flex corporation. We think it'll appeal to that priority that's in the IRS rules for it to serve disadvantaged communities, whether it's low to moderate income housing or job creation. So my first question to you is, how do I attract a board that includes those partners like our universities and our chamber and our city? How do I get an advisory board made up of people that can help get all the players, stakeholders at the table? Because we want to rebuild the maritime industry in the US. We want to create jobs, create apprenticeships. It's definitely going to be something that would be sustainable with some grant participation. But I need a really well-rounded, sophisticated board that first of all understands how the Qualified Opportunity Zone program works. So what is your advice on that?
I think offline, there are two things we can talk about. One is I'm a former instructor at Long Beach, State in their master's in logistics. So that institution has an interest and supports what you're doing. And then I also know an incubator that specializes in maritime.
Oh, great.
So why don't we just connect after the call, and
Okay.
Travis or I can do some introductions.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I think Sonia is up next now.
Yes. Okay. Hi. So I'm currently part of a startup right now, and we're going through a founder exit. I am leaving the company to go start my own. And so we've been having some complications with that since I am a board member and also a shareholder. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice or any insights to share or any experiences that you've had with that and how to go about it properly.
So you want to leave on good terms, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You're, as a shareholder, you're kind of like married to the first company, right? And honestly, you want them to be successful so you can have a capital event to be rewarded in the future. So I would want to do everything above board, transparent. Have you told the firm of your intent?
Yes, I have, and it hasn't been going so smoothly, I would say, because I have the intention to sell back all of my shares, and I want to receive, I guess, a third of the assets from the company, and they did not agree. They want me to sign over like everything I'd ever created under the company and like all the money that I had like fundraised or won on behalf of the company, and just basically like just hand over everything.
Yeah, so you're going to have to retain an attorney at this point in time. I would like to think could be negotiated. Of course, any of the trade secrets, the IP of the company, stay with the company. In your new entity, you cannot carry that forward. And it could be that the attorney could mediate if you've come to the point where you cannot negotiate this with the former company. So that unfortunately that may be the case. There are mediators, and then there are attorneys as well. But my take is I would secure an attorney. This is going to be a litigator. Probably you can accomplish this in a few meetings with legal documentation. So I would say it's resolvable based on what you just told me. So and if you need a reference on an attorney, Travis and I can help.
That'd be awesome. And do you have any like personal experience with like mediating founder leaving and stuff like that?
I don't brand myself as a mediator. I have done so. And because of, let's say if you're asking about me personally, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because of my neutrality, my position at the university, my gray hair, I've acted in that capacity. Yet there are others who that's what they do for their full-time business, and I would certainly encourage you to consider that.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, is there anybody else?
Yeah, this is Raphael. Can I ask another
Oh yeah,
couple
please,
questions?
please, Raphael.
So thank you. Thanks. This has been a great session, Travis and JJ. So I'm going to ask from a couple different angles. One is meeting advisors, and one is being a director on a board. So first question is, would it be an appropriate use for an advisor for me to find advisors that could help me connect with CEOs? So I have a pretty extensive professional network, but I don't really feel like I have access to large corporate CEOs, and I need to really refine my product market fit. And so I need to talk to CEOs about their recruiting challenges and their strategies and really how they really feel about diversity recruiting in the future. So is it appropriate to use advisors and find advisors to help me connect? So that's my first question. And then my second question is, being a digital transformation and product development professional myself, helping companies design, build, and commercialize products, how do I get on a board of director position? Yeah, so those are two questions. Whatever you're able to answer would be great.
So I think it is reasonable to ask your advisor to assist in the effort to identify CEOs. And depending on the advisor, that could be easy or difficult, depending how big their network is and all their affiliations. But yes, it would be reasonable. When it comes to becoming a board of director, there are actually registries, if you're so inclined to join, that do the matchmaking with corporations and prospective board members. And I would say that the normal course for people, instead of the matchmaking, is you're connected on some level to an up-and-coming company that is expanding their board. You've expressed interest into them. They see that you can bring something to the party. So that's kind of networking 101. And you kind of let people know that you're interested. Knowing full well that, hey, it's a lot of work to be on the board of directors. And there is that risk that we've talked about.
Right. Do you feel that it is a good way to sort of elevate my professional profile by being on the board?
Absolutely. Yeah. So at some point in your career, it's not just the jobs you had, but it's the other things you do that make you more valuable. And I don't want to compare myself to you, but at this stage in my career, I mostly do introductions. I help people, and that's very fulfilling. And as for my reward, well, if it doesn't come this month, maybe it'll come in the afterlife, because I've done some good. And so I do find it very fulfilling.
The only thing I would add to that, and I think that maybe you were just talking about this, JJ, if so, I apologize, but nonprofit boards are also good for resume building.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nonprofit boards are typically very active in fundraising, in helping the nonprofit survive, potentially in COVID, and thrive thereafter. They can be an immense amount of work. And my experience with nonprofits is they're looking for people who are going to dig in and help. They don't need names on the website. They want people that are going to make things happen.
Yeah, this is Rafael again. So that's my experience, and I'm on a nonprofit board now, but I'm looking to be on a corporate board because I feel like it might be a better avenue for elevating my profile. Yeah. And then also, I know that in California anyway, there are some diversity related rules around women and maybe other diversity groups that must be part of a board of directors. Are there company size limits where that kicks in, or is it a more general requirement for all boards?
Yeah, I think, the public facing companies are generally hip to the role of diversity. One, for PR, okay, that they want to look right. But secondly, diversity pays off. So diverse management teams, diverse boards make better decisions. There's a lot of research that confirms that. And there's real power there. Now, I think that society is still waking up to that, but I think diversity is is spot on. It's where the action is, and we're in a cultural shift right now, and there's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Eva has a question. How do you cultivate and obtain business connections today while starting one? LinkedIn, maybe?
So
And
we're looking for.
Eva, why don't you unmute yourself so you could expand on that a little bit?
You know, as you are a job seeker, you go on LinkedIn and you get connections and you find people there. So how can you do that on a business basis? You know you can do the work, but you don't know you're out there, and you need to get yourself in. And it's always the best way to have people say, "Oh, I know someone who knows someone that can help you," and that's
Yeah.
where I'm trying to get in.
Yeah, I think if we use the LinkedIn suggestion, LinkedIn has changed. It's quite social these days, and it can be a platform for presenting yourself as a knowledge worker, someone who's expert in a topic or topics. And so publishing your personal blog, joining the different many groups that are available on LinkedIn, it's incredible. Now, my LinkedIn numbers are maybe relevant here. So I have a little over 4,000 contacts, and another 6,000 of another category of contacts on LinkedIn. And I get people knocking on my door every day for help. So with active participation in just LinkedIn alone, there's a tremendous opportunity. And then with the local meetups and mastermind groups, it's another great way to meet people. And a little secret in networking, and my friend Don McRae on the call here knows this, that you don't go in asking people what they can do for you. You flip it and you try to help others. And so every time I meet someone, it's my objective to figure out a way that I can follow up and help them in some capacity. And with that, I don't necessarily ask for anything in return, but I just know that if I can be of some assistance, if I can do an introduction, if I can refer them to some website or whatever it is, they're going to remember that, and that will perpetuate an ongoing relationship, which hopefully could benefit you.
All right, are there any other questions? Any other things that anybody wants to discuss?
I had a quick question. This is Eva again. I wanted to, I have met with somebody online saying, "Oh, we have so many things in common." And then he asked me, "What do you do?" And I explained it a little bit. But then I must have done something because he didn't respond. And I mentioned, "Oh, would you happen to have any resources, et cetera, et cetera." So is there a better way of connecting then, maybe, that maybe it was a little bit too much too soon? Or is there a certain way of communicating?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I get up in the morning and I have hundreds of emails. I have phone messages. I have Facebook messages. I have LinkedIn messages. And it is easy for me, and I'm a pretty good administrator. I'm not perfect. For me to miss something, to not read something carefully. So you can't presume that if you've sent someone a message that they got it. And the rule of thumb would be, if they have what you need, you're in charge of continuing that discussion. And another piece of advice I'd give you is don't keep score. All right. If someone is more senior than you, and they have what you need, continue to make contact with them. Now, it could be you made some mistake with it, or it could be they just didn't get it, right? And so when in doubt, you call them back, you email them back, you message them back.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. By the way, one of my favorite techniques for staying in touch with people is to pick up the phone. I know that sounds very primitive. And you call them, and of course you're going to get a voicemail, right? I mean, it seems like 95 times out of 100, you're going to get a voicemail. So what you do is when you get the voicemail, you say something like this. Hey, Harold, this is JJ. I just wanted you to know that I was thinking about you. I hope all is well. Click. I got to tell you, that is so powerful. So you're not asking for anything, you're not selling for anything, but you just cared enough to leave a message, make a call. And a surprising number of times, people will call back. Now think about it. If you did that, you said Friday is your networking day. You could easily call 50 people in your network and send a simple, beautiful message like that. And the universe is going to reward you for doing that. I guarantee it.
Yeah, the only thing I can add to that is, remember it's a process. You're not going to, make a great connection the first time you try it out. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments?
Rob, Annie, Don?
I think I just have a little comment to add. I said JJ had everything just so on point, and sometimes you just not assuming everyone would get back to you, and it is what it is, right? I mean, not everyone had any obligation to get back to us either, and I think it just as long as we really there just to get hope, I think the universe will give back to you what you ask for, but you have to be persistent about it.
Yeah.
You're not getting just once and you're gone. And believe it or not, I think I had made so many very embarrassing mistakes in the past for contacting people, and I feel like, why people don't get back to me, and I take it personally, but don't.
It's got to keep on. Yeah.
I had a question. How do you connect with someone through a phone call if your first contact is online through LinkedIn?
Yeah, there may be others on the call here that have managed this, but usually I let them know I'm going to call. So I send an email and say, hey, this is JJ. We're connected on LinkedIn. I've got some questions about blankety blank or whatever it is. And then you say, I intend to call you on Friday afternoon. So you said who you are, what you're trying to do, and when you're going to do it. And then most importantly, you do it. And with that, there is some likelihood that they'll pick up the phone. You could also you could be bold and set up an appointment. You could send an Outlook invite. If someone I didn't know sends me an Outlook invite, I might look at it a little cross-eyed, but if they go through maybe some baby steps to get to me, and and maybe I'm different than most, but generally I pick up the call anyway. That's just who I am, because you never know who's going to be on that call, right? What opportunity is going to be there?
All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much, JJ. It was a great presentation, great answers to the questions. Is there anything we can do for you?
You know, this fall, our students are going to be available as consultants as part of our academic process. And they're looking to connect with local companies that are trying to solve issues in marketing, operations, finance, leadership. And so if your company or you know someone who needs help, we would love to have that introduction.
Very good. All right. Then with that being said, I think I'll just leave the line open for a few more minutes just in case anybody has any other questions. But thank you all for attending. You are free to go.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, just want to say thank you so much. It's been very useful. Forming an advisory board is one of the key things that we're focused on right now at my startup. And yeah, again, thank you. This really helps guide our.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Alex. And if you need anything, just reach out to us, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Comment before you guys left, and I think you guys should just give the student a chance to contribute to your project. They have so much perspective that you may be, on your life blind spot and you never think about, and it really was a chance for them to help you. Let people help you guys. Don't figure out alone. It takes a lot of time. Don't do it.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you, Danny.
JJ, this is Raphael again. Speaking of time, what do you think is a reasonable time commitment expectation for bringing on an advisor to an early stage startup?
In terms of how much time they commit?
Correct.
Yeah.
How do you negotiate the amount of time or effort?
Yeah. So I would say usually a standing meeting on a monthly basis, let's say for an hour, is a very reasonable request. And then beyond that, there could be the expectation that you will call periodically with questions. And there could be, things that happen that require meetings. So in my advisor relationship with startups, there's this one startup that I work with, or I'm as likely to get phone calls at 11 o'clock at night as I would be any other time. Now, why is that? Well, it's because he works with Pakistan and his business day really gets going later at night. So, and I'm okay with that. So you kind of need to set those expectations and I would say you need to put it in writing in your advisor agreement. Just kind of, hey, this is the type of help I'm looking for. These are kind of the minimum expectations on content. I think that's a very reasonable thing. And if someone pushes back on it, okay, well, that may not be your advisor, or that advisor, even though, so there may be some considerable value, you'll just have to be selective in your interaction with them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, thank you for the opportunity for this workshop. It was very informative to me because I'm on the other side of business, and often the medical side gets overlooked. So this was very informative, and I will be reaching out about your opportunity with students because I've mentored and supervised a lot of student interns throughout my practice years.
Thank you. The call to action is right now in preparation for the fall. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, JJ. Informative as usual.
Nice to see you, my friend. And you saw my note from this morning?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Be
you.
back here later today.
Bye,
Good deal.
Bye.
See you, Annie.
Bye-bye, Annie.
Bye.